Let's go ahead and go to the last video with Liz Cheney. I really want to hear Liz Cheney. Again, I'm diametrically opposed to her.
I don't want to presume anything, but is your number one issue threats to democracy as a voter?
It is. I think that when you look at the extent to which we're facing challenges now that threaten to unravel the fundamental institutions and structures of our election system and process, that is the basis and the foundation on which we can have all of these other debates. So it absolutely is the number one issue.
On the Wyoming ballot, we know of at least two election deniers, the woman that defeated you in the primary and the a gentleman by the name of Chuck Gray running for Secretary of State. I assume they did not earn your vote?
No, they will not. And I think no one of any party should be voting for people who are election deniers. And I think we have to be clear what it means to be an election denier. It means, in the case, for example, of Kari Lake and Mark Finchem in Arizona, they have both said, we've looked at all of the facts, we've looked at the results of the election in 2020, we've looked at the law, we've looked at the fact that the courts all ruled against Donald Trump, we've looked at the audits and the recounts. We are willing to ignore all of that. And we are saying we would not have certified that election. They're telling you that they'll only certify an election they agree with. And there's not much graver threat to the democracy than you can imagine than that.
A lot of Republicans in the last 3 weeks that I would describe as empathetic to what you've been doing have suddenly found themselves deciding, hey, party over country. What do you make of those decisions?
You know, I think they are really indefensible decisions. And, you know, I've said I think that Glenn Youngkin has done a good job as governor of Virginia, but nobody should be out advocating for the election of people who will not honor the sanctity of our elections process. And, you know, people who do that are, in fact, putting politics ahead of the Constitution and ahead of the country.
I've noticed Dan Cox, who's the Republican nominee in Maryland, it's been pretty easy for Republicans to ignore him. It seems like it's been harder for them to ignore Kari Lake in Arizona, battleground state. Even we've seen some even campaign with Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. This win it, whatever it takes to win, winning trumps everything. How do you blow that up in the party?
Well, I think you've got to remind people that everybody has an obligation to defend the Constitution, an obligation to do what's right. And so right now you've got a lot of Republicans in particular. Democrats do the same thing. It just happens that our candidates are more dangerous right now. But you have got a lot of Republicans who are saying, you know what, I'm going to ignore the threat posed by a former president who attempted to use force to overturn an election, to stop the count of electoral votes. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore these people who embrace him. I'm going to ignore the danger, and I'm just going to focus on the near term. Is the Republican Party going to prevail?
Why do you think more Republicans can't look? I just came back from Georgia. Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, the governor, both beat back Trump challenges. Now, they didn't use anti-Trump rhetoric to do it, but they won. And they look like they're going to be in better shape. Why do you think other Republicans can't look at that and say, oh, it's good politics, not bad politics?
You know, my hope is that ultimately our party will come back to that. I think it may take a couple of election cycles to do that. But I think, you know, people need to understand they're not bystanders. They're accountable for their actions. The people who are excusing and appeasing and enabling are also responsible for the impact of that. And words matter. And when you support and endorse somebody who said that they only will honor results if they win, then you are responsible and accountable for that.
We spend a lot absolutely so. You are responsible. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.